So hi, everyone. I'm Nita Raghawansi, President of Music Managers Forum US. MMF-US has a wonderful and impactful history in its 28 years. And we here at MMF-US have been steadily and diligently continuing that growth of the organization by building on our programming, on our advocacy, and on our ideas. And we have ideas for things that we could do to truly provide the best for managers and self-managed artists, especially in this crucial time. Something that we can do to provide constructive takeaways, improvement in your businesses, a constructive dialogue that leads to real professional growth. So all the while, we're also really trying to work towards bringing a real sense of inclusivity and plurality to this sector of our industry. One such initiative that has been through the generous support of the Bold Women's Leadership Network is that MMF was able to bring on a diversity, equity, and inclusion fellow whose purpose it is to help us develop and implement a diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy, and to promote DE&I in the artist management and self-managed artist sector in our industry. And so I am very proud to introduce to you Juliana Castrillon, who's up here, up here in the corner for me, who helped us to curate this amazing panel today and to kick off our new series, a series that we worked on together called Perspectives, which is designed to focus on MMF's DE&I goals. And mind you, this work that we're going to do is focused around membership recruitment and programming and advocacy and everything else. And so I'd like to introduce you to Juliana. Juliana, welcome, and take it away.
Sounds good. Hello, everyone. My name is Juliana Castrillon, as Nita mentioned. I am so happy to be here today, and I am the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Fellow for MMF, as Nita said previously. As she said, we're really just happy to have you here for our first episode of Perspectives, which is going to feature amazing artist managers, and we're going to have a really interesting conversation today. But yes, as just to kind of go a little bit deeper into the purpose of today's conversation, we just want to really highlight variety and ideas that come from diverse groups with different backgrounds and identities. So today's episode will allow us to see the perspectives of these wonderful managers. So moderating with me will be wonderful Belinda Ligotino, who is also or was part of the Bold Women's Leadership Network. So Belinda, you can introduce yourself if you want.
Hello, everyone. I'm Belinda Ligotino, and like Juliana said, I was also part of the Bold Women's Leadership Network, and I am now an alumni. I also was a fellow, but a fellow for the amazing organization Women in Music. And I work with Music Managers Forum as well. And it's amazing. And I'm so excited to be here today. My day-to-day job, I work for an artist development company called Amplify here in Nashville, Tennessee. And we manage one artist and develop and work with a few other artists. So thanks for being here today, everyone. Excited to start.
Yes, totally. And definitely don't forget to engage with us on the chat. And we're probably going to have a small Q&A session towards the end. So feel free to drop any questions you may have for our panelists. So with that said, I'll turn over your attention to the panelists here. As mentioned, we're going to highlight these managers because they are focused on innovation and artist growth strategies. And today we'll discuss their most effective live and digital marketing strategies. We'll also discuss management deal structures that they find effective, and maybe just explore a little bit of their future projections of what they think the music industry will look like, you know. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our panelists to introduce yourselves.
Cool. I think I'll go first since I'm also repping the MMF over here. So hi, I'm Wesley O'Hara. I manage 6 artists, and I'm also the vice president of education membership of Music Managers Forum US. I'm based in Mexico, but I've been in New York the last couple years previously, and before that I was in Europe and 30 plus countries a year for several years as well. Mostly working in marketing consulting across the industry, and that's how a lot of people tend to know me. I think the breakdown of my roster very quickly is pretty much half Atlanta hip hop and then half very poppy pop. So I've got like a K-pop writer, I've got a top 10 artist from China, and then I've got a pop artist out of LA who's, you know, very traditional kind of pop music, and everyone else is on the very trappy hip hop side. So maybe we pass it to Claire.
Sure. Hey guys, I'm Claire. I work at Triple Eight Management, and I've been there for about 6 years now. For 6 years, I've been working with a band called Judah and the Lion and another band called Penny and Sparrow. And then I just signed a band called the Aces back in April. Yeah, so I do management over there. Kind of started as an assistant and worked my way up, and basically have my dream job. So love the people I work with. My artists are incredible. Yeah, so I really focus in on those 3 artists specifically on our roster.
Amazing. Thank you, Claire. Christiana, do you want to introduce yourself here?
Sure. Hi, guys. I'm Christiana Sudano, originally from Nashville, now residing in Santa Monica, California. I own Do Less Management and have recently joined forces with Sorum, who manages writers and producers. With Do Less Management, we're focused on bridging the gap between Scandinavia and the US. So we have lots of different partners in both Scandinavia and in the UK, and also have some clients based in Los Angeles. Sorum represents writers and producers. Harv, who produced Peaches and is also Justin Bieber's musical director, Felicia and Fallon Fury. They are writers and have wrote on numerous records, Chris Brown, Danny Lay, also on Peaches, lots of different Justin Bieber cuts. So kind of a wide variety of things that I've been working on. Just focused on advocating for artists and artists' rights. My background was at artist development at Universal for 7 years, and then most recently at Concord, working on as a PM for Joni Mitchell, James Taylor, but really started as an assistant too at Universal, working my way up, and ended up working on Taylor Swift campaigns, Sam Smith, Halsey, so on and so forth. So management is definitely really special, and I'm so happy to be in this sector.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Christiana. Now, Michaela.
Hi guys, my name is Michaela Puth. I work over at Friends at Work. I've been there for about almost 2 years in April, which is crazy. I met Ty, who is the founder of Friends at Work, probably over 5 years ago when she was at Atom Factory. And we reconnected a few years ago, and now we're working together managing singer, songwriter, producer Charlie Puth, who is also my brother, funny enough. If you don't know his music, he has songs like See You Again, We Don't Talk Anymore. And he recently wrote Justin Bieber's hit song Stay with Kid Laroi. Christiana, I feel like we definitely have connected previously in some way via email when you said Harv and whatnot. I've been working on Charlie's management team for about, I want to say almost 6 years, which is crazy. Started out as his day-to-day at Live Nation, then went out on my own, and then reconnected with Ty a few years ago. So it's been great. Friends at Work works with John Legend and has a few development acts as well. And obviously Charlie.
Nice. Thank you so much. We're so grateful to have all of you today. And I just wanted to make a quick announcement that unfortunately Austin Davis, who was supposed to be a panelist with us today, he couldn't join. So we're sending him good wishes. and have Wesley here to provide another perspective onto our panel, which is going to be amazing. So why don't we get started and start conversing about your journeys as managers. Basically, we want to know what your scope is. You kind of talked a little bit about how many artists you're working with, but maybe tell us a little bit about what projects you're really excited about, things that you're working towards currently. Anybody want to jump in?
I could kick it off if it helps. With Charlie specifically, with the pandemic and everything, we really took that time to focus in on his brand identity and the album that he's been working on. We're getting ready to release new music at the top of the year, so we're really excited about that and really taking this time to cultivate the brand identity and really create that connection between artist and fan base. So it's really exciting for us, and we're really excited as a group and management team to, show the world and show his fans the new music, because it's been a minute.
Totally. That makes total sense. And it's really exciting. We can't wait to hear it.
It's been a nice variety of things. He's been writing for other artists and then obviously working on his own project. So we really get the best of both worlds, and, seeing what he's doing with other artists and then seeing what he's doing for himself. And it's a nice overlap.
Yeah, that's amazing that he gets to do those two facets, of being an artist and also a songwriter.
Yeah, you definitely, as an artist, you learn from other songwriters, producers, and especially that he's so heavily involved in that world. From one session, he walks away from that and really, he could change the production on a song or even change the key change because he just took that from another artist. So every day we're learning something new from Charlie, and he's learning something new. So it's been great.
Amazing. That's very good. Why don't we hear from Claire or Christiana?
Yeah, I'll go. It's a super active time with all of my artists right now, which is really exciting. Judah and the Lion specifically, they are celebrating 10 years as a band next month, which is pretty incredible. They started as just friends in college, and now they're playing amphitheaters, and it's just been a really cool journey for them. They're in their 30s now, which is really exciting. They kind of have figured out how they want their career to look. So it's been really exciting because they're writing for a new record right now, finally. So the last record they released was in May of 2019. And I myself am just ready for new music because I love that aspect of an artist's career, just from the creation to the branding, to the release of music. It's like my favorite process. So that's really exciting for us. They released a new song on Friday. So that's something we're gearing up for. And then the Aces, which is one of my newest clients, and it's my first female client, which is really exciting for me. They are starting their tour on Friday. So first tour out of COVID I've been working, which has been daunting, to say the least, just prepping and kind of mimicking other tours to see how people have successfully toured during this time, right. Which people have, and it's really encouraging. But everything from selling tickets to what the protocol is on the road, it's just everything is so different right now. So we've just been flexible and really hopeful and positive, and first date is sold out in Seattle. So really exciting stuff for them.
Yes.
And then Penny and Sparrow, they're announcing a tour this week, and we go up with a new record in January. It's their first self-produced record, which has been a really fun process. It's honestly my favorite thing they've ever written. I've never listened to a client's record more than I've listened to this record. It's just honestly brilliant, and it's just really exciting to work on all clients that I really love, especially with music that I'm just incredibly passionate about. and seeing the process and all the hard work that's gone into it. It's incredibly rewarding. So lots going on for everyone. It's a very crazy time. But it's been really fun because we're basically just focusing in on branding around these 2 new records coming out. And then for the Aces, we're really just diving into fan engagement. I think they've done really well in the past with making sure they're keeping up with fans. They have personal connections to fans. But I think there's been a few missed opportunities that we're kind of honing in on now, and they're starting more like fan-centric communities, which has been really fun to watch fans interact with one another and plan meetups and kind of help us like from the ground up just market music and touring. And it's been really fun to see how when we can really consolidate everyone and have them in one space, like what magic can happen. It's been really fun to kind of explore that with the Aces.
Totally. That sounds really exciting. We're gonna have to listen to all of this music that is coming out, and
so much new music.
Buy tickets to the tour.
Yes, buy tickets.
But yeah, I think it's important that or something that's really interesting is creating community with the fan base, right? How as an artist do you encourage your audience to be engaged, right? So
yeah,
that's actually really interesting that it's one of the focuses that you've had. I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
Christiana, tell us a little bit about your scope.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most exciting things I'm hyped about is behind me. We're at One-on-One Recording here in North Hollywood, and it is a legendary recording studio. Everyone from Donna Summer to Kiss to Metallica recorded the Black Album here. So this is a project that I just got recently brought into, and I'm really excited about it. I think this space will give so much opportunity for our artists to like record and write and film and do all of these things. So that's super exciting for us. As far as I think you mentioned growth and digital growth and things like that. I am, when I was in artist development at Universal, TikTok did not exist. We had Musical.ly and a couple of these other platforms. So I am in the process of getting TikTok. One of my clients is huge on TikTok, and getting their fans engaged off of TikTok, off of the platform, and growing their organic fan base through real fans instead of views and viewership. So that's one of the things I'm working on with that client. And he has a show coming out next week and a song coming out on Friday called Closure. So we're kind of wrapping up that first section of singles and on to other things, but I'll keep it brief, but that's kind of what's going on this side.
That's very exciting. Amazing. Love to hear it. And let's hear from Wesley too. What is something exciting that you could share with us today?
Yeah, we've got a couple of things going on. So the way in which I work with most of my management clients is not so much as like a manager as it is like just a business builder for them. So for instance, if we have an artist who's going and getting a check from a label, it'll kind of be more of figuring out how we take that check and do something super business oriented with it. So a good example is with my main partners down in Atlanta, an artist called Genius and his business partner called K-Camp. We got a check from Interscope. We built a 4,000 square foot studio, got a couple of rooms of it sponsored. So we have like a radio room sponsored by some spatial audio people, and we have a lounge section sponsored by Backwoods. And then we staffed up a record label, signed 4 artists, built a distribution company, built a marketing agency, all out of that first advance coming from a major. And one thing that I'm working on right now for the first time is figuring all of this out for a songwriter and kind of a songwriter producer situation. So one of my clients, a guy named Ellis Mia, he wrote for Map of the Soul 7 with BTS, and he's written for Miley and Selena Gomez and a bunch of other pop people. But really right now we're figuring out how to take that kind of, system building, company building, sign a bunch of artists, make a real system that supports all of them, all off the back of your one kind of major advance. And doing that in the songwriter and producer space isn't something that I've seen a whole lot of to date. So that's very interesting and super expansive to my mind. And the other super fun things that we're figuring out at the moment, incidentally, we had one of the first biggest songs on TikTok, which was the Renegade Dance. And it was the biggest song on TikTok for like 7 months. And we finally just, 6 months after the heyday of that song, actually created a TikTok profile for the artist who had that song, because they were strongly opposed to being on TikTok and just don't vibe with the platform creatively. And right now we're doing exactly some of the other steps that have been described by the other panelists so far, of one, figuring out how touring and ticket conversions happen from TikTok, and two, really connecting the existing Ticket Power audience with a TikTok audience, which tends to be younger, tends to not have any purchasing power to speak of. And those are probably the two main learnings we have around TikTok. And then the last thing is like a kind of like a personal side thing that my artists and I are all working on together. So my roster is like very much a family, and we'll all like, go on trips together and hang out together, and all of them will make songs together and things like that. And I had 4 of my artists down with me in Mexico. I live in the jungle of Mexico the last couple of weeks, and we came up with an idea for something called Jungle Sessions, which we've talked to like the NPR Tiny Desk team about, and a couple of the other like small little production groups about, as far as just figuring out a nice, repeatable, systematic way to produce video sessions with DJs, acoustic sets, and varied types of artists at my house in the jungle, which I've never been a production company before, and it's also a very other fun thing to be learning, and all of my artists are participating in this together. So it's a nice opportunity that they all have to be lifting each other up and working on something that's out of all of their element, and we think can actually become like a really fun ongoing thing. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing that, Wesley. And we're going to delve a little bit more into challenges in a minute, but I'm going to let Belinda take over to ask the next question.
Yeah, so we're heading into 2022, which means as a manager, you always have to be thinking forward and thinking about what's happening next, as well as strategy. So I would love to chat about some of your strongest strategies going into 2022 for growth.
I mean, I think this week. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think this week, what everybody's talking about is just merch with the Spotify integration. Also, Little Birdie told me that TikTok will also be having a merch integration being rolled out to major label artists. I think they're rolling out in Europe first. But I think as we go forward, like the direct to consumer, like click, you could get on my merch, click, you could get on TikTok and also buy merch. Like that's going to be such a revenue stream looking forward to 2022. And I think just coming up with things that are different, like everybody has the same old hat, the same old shirt, like what can we do that's going to be tangible and different? And a lot of like my past work has been creating tangible things with.
Did we just lose her?
Oh,
No,
huh? Oh no.
Oh,
we lost you.
you're
We
back.
lost you after you said creating tangible things with Earth.
Am I back?
Yes, we're back.
Yeah, sorry, I'm tethering from my iPhone. Yes, so I have to brag on Axel, who's doing the lullaby sessions. He does such a good job of like, okay, this is a product that I'm talking on Clubhouse, and now it's a tangible ticketed event. And I think that's what we're going to see a lot of in 2022 is physical events, in-person events, but also having some sort of virtual ticketing aspect to that as well, especially with merch. So lots of bundles, and it seems so old school, but I think if we do it differently and we do it well, I think that's going to be a huge trend in 2022 of just seeing exclusive, interesting merch. because now you're going to be able to buy it directly on TikTok.
Perfect. And who doesn't want the easiest way to possibly get something in your hands?
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm excited to see what's going to happen there.
I think that is like the whole direct to consumer thing is super, super huge. And on the digital side of that, NFTs are like just shitting money out if you can actually activate it with the community with some level of credibility. So I think that has been a really fun growth opportunity for a multitude of artists, and mine notwithstanding so far. I think one big thing that we're all becoming more cognizant of is that the labels are also realizing merch is the way to go. And I mean, Universal's already got Bravado, so they're already like triple dipping on you know, the different revenue streams, and you know, things like that are happening. I think the big challenge that's been happening for merch is kind of figuring out how you can do something sustainably and ship it efficiently at this point. I mean, there's already like crazy shipping delays from giant established companies, let alone from drop shipping setups that some artists are trying to do quickly and do limited run merch drops. I think one growth prospect that we've been talking about for a few months now is kind of that in management companies, as like management companies continue to staff up more and more, we also have a broader opportunity to actually be hiring people who can better connect to DSPs. So when we start to think, hey, who are the hires going to be for management companies in 2022? I kind of feel like the last few years it's been like marketing people and some design people and some more like logistics people and supply chain and all that operational level stuff. And I think the next kind of move for that might be more along the lines of the people who run DSP relations inside labels. So there have been a couple exits, particularly like Virgin and Capital are coming to mind right now, of people who are in DSP relations going over to management companies. And I think that's just one of the slickest moves that can happen. And if you also think, hey, what's to stop a very large management company from hiring out all of the product managers that they really love from that record label that they work with? Eventually, that record label's team is going to be your team, and you're not going to have to rely on that label for them to go get 75% of the revenue, and you have a lot more going on in house all of a sudden. And I think like particularly the how can we talk to Spotify, how can we talk to Apple conversation, like for those managers who have had long-standing relationships with DSP is awesome. They, from the DSP side, they usually won't let you even like CC in additional colleagues or like even try to meet the new editors who are coming into a DSP. They'll just shut it down, which is ridiculous because it's not how humans work. But you know, if someone needs to maintain fake control, you need to maintain fake gatekeeping, and that's that. But I think the biggest thing that we have our eyes on for 2022 is finding the best people in some labels and chucking them a couple points on the projects that we're working on, and making sure that they're going to bat for us and no longer in-house at a record label, because those relationships are like really too valuable for us to just keep letting majors be the only people who have them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Yeah, that's cool. And kind of adding on to that, just expanding employees at a mid-range management company. Like we've even looked into having someone and promoted someone on our, someone who was a manager to a more brand partnership specific label. So, I mean, brand partnerships have been massive for all of our clients on just our whole roster. So that's something like we've really been focusing on and being more intentional with just keeping up those relationships. And now we have someone that is consistently hitting up all of our contacts at all of these different brands and agencies and making sure that they're well equipped with whatever is going on with each of our clients and being able to pitch different companies that make sense for or different partnerships that make sense for different clients. And having someone specifically work on that side of things has been honestly like a huge weight off of each of our managers' backs, because those relationships need to be kept up with on a very consistent basis. And now we have someone just focusing on that. And with that, like, we've been brought more opportunities, and we've been given more creative ideas to have meaningful partnerships that aren't just like, here's a product that we like, let's put it on social media. Like, they're really more long-term, and a lot of them are more like integrated into events and touring and just everything outside of social media. So it's been really cool to have that kind of perspective and that addition to our management role. So that's been really cool. And then just obviously, like, back to fan engagement, I think it's literally the most important thing. Like, what else are we here for? What else are artists here for? That's been like a massive focus for me and for all of my clients, and creating spaces for, I mean, I'm going back to what I was talking about before, but just creating spaces for our clients' fans to really just engage with one another. And we just created a Discord server for the Aces where, you know, a lot of it has been focused on gaming in the past, but there are some artists that have been utilizing it as a platform for fan communities. So we have been dropping exclusives, whether that's like a first look into what the tour is going to look like from a production standpoint, and what the merch is going to look like on tour, and encouraging fans to share X and Y in order to get a free download of a new song that they get to listen to before it drops on DSPs, like stuff like that. I think just engaging fans in that way, like, that's where things bubble up and kind of explode. And obviously our focus is to engage a wider audience outside of our current fan base. But when you like really get to the core of it, those fans are the ones that are going to make you bigger. They're going to tell their friends, they're going to post about you all the time. They're going to be the ones that buy the most merch. Our D2C business is really, really important. And we want to make sure like fans get access to that and have a say in what those products are going to be. So we know what fans like, what fans will buy. Yeah. So that's a brand partnerships, and just fan engagement is really like my biggest, like the biggest things I'm kind of highlighting and flagging in the short term.
Yeah, and I think going off of that, it really, backpedals to consistency. We have a woman who works with us at Friends at Work, who's the head of brand partnerships, and her mission with Charlie specifically, when it comes to getting brand deals, and like you said, it's not just a product saying, hey, we'll give you X amount, and it's almost like hashtag this, hashtag that. It's really, how do you find a brand partnership where authenticity continues to be the main component? And with Charlie recently, he did an LG campaign where he, collaborated with 3 or 4 contestants and created this jingle with them. And similarly with the Subway campaign, he's writing, he's producing, and we're telling that narrative to his fan base. And going off of DSPs, it's really important nowadays with, the age of social media to really showcase, what's going on with your artist and bridging that gap and that narrative so that you can create this relationship with the artist and their fan base. It's not what it used to be where you go to a physical show and you can have a traditional meet and greet. How do we tell that story and really create that storyline? It's not as simple as, I'm just going to put this song out and see what happens. It's, creating that buzz. And we've seen it with Olivia Rodrigo, how she was on the show and then she went through the public breakup and then she launched this whole album around heartbreak, and Taylor Swift has done it. And it's really important that we continue to create these storylines for our fans.
Love that.
Absolutely. I think storytelling is very much part of the original idea of music. And I think the music industry is starting to really praise all of those artists that give you that, right? Like all of the fans today are absolutely enjoying being able to learn those stories from the personal side of the artist, rather than the product itself, but rather feel that connection with the artist. I think is so crucial. So it makes sense, right? Thank you all for your thoughts on this, and I'd like to kind of shift the conversation a little bit now that we've talked about really how to succeed, or these strategies that you're going to implement to push your artists forward. What do you think are one of the biggest challenges that you're facing now, or that you feel like you're going to face in the future? We'd love to know how you overcame them, what you have to tell us about that journey to success. Anybody who wants to?
I mean, I'm happy to jump in because I think that we've covered it in some light. It's really the uncertainty of what's going on in the world right now. It's, planning for a tour and building that routing and wondering if it's really going to happen. And, there's all these different protocols, and we have to adhere to them as managers and really create a flow for our artists so that they can do their job correctly. So it's really been a challenge with that. I would really open the conversation for COVID and coming off of that. We were all doing virtual shows, and then that kind of came to a stop, and now we're all transitioning back into actual touring. And it's almost like weddings when you think about it. We're being pushed back a few years now because there's so much activity in the marketplace.
Yeah. I think just to go along with that, like just remaining flexible, which I feel like as managers, naturally, we are planners and we like to stick to those plans because we know that's what will work. But I know I've been tested in so many ways and have had to remain flexible even outside of touring, like having recording plans and making sure we're following specific protocol. And what if someone gets COVID and we have to cancel those plans, and there's no way to record for the next few months because there's a tour going on? How do we reframe, re-strategize? We've just never had this much pushback on planning. So I think just remaining flexible and understanding has been my biggest challenge. But yeah, I think that's kind of been something that's really helped me, just being understanding and being okay, you know what? This isn't happening right now because it can't, for everyone's safety. We're gonna strategize, make sure we're still being proactive, but we're gonna have to move this down the line. So flexibility, number one.
That's good. I think the music industry definitely could use from understanding flexibility. We've been tested.
Yeah.
So I totally understand that. Any other thoughts?
I've just got a different kind of problem going on in hip hop. We haven't had the problem of touring being shut down. It's almost all been going on for the last year and a half. So that hasn't been so much of the problem. The harder problem right now has kind of been figuring out how to cultivate an audience in the West for an artist coming from the East. Particularly, my one artist is called Christian Kostov, and he's the youngest ever Eurovision contestant, and top 10 in China, pulls in 2 million people on a live stream over there without any marketing ahead of it, which is a lot of people. And we can do anything we want in China. We can start TV shows, we can get brand deals, we can do shows with anyone, collab with anybody. And there's this just very difficult problem. And this is basically why I started working with this artist, of figuring out how the hell in 2021 and 2022 do we take an artist with a Chinese and Russian fan base and make them big in America in pop, when it is the antithesis of the American ethos in so many ways, and especially after the last 4 years of kind of how everything's going, and then COVID doesn't make anything better. And so that's like a different problem. And if anyone has any suggestions, I'm open to everything, because we are trying everything from collabs to brands to like labels won't touch the shit. I'm like, anyway, so ideas are always welcome. If the thing is, there's never really been this kind of a case study either, so there's like a lot of craziness to pull out of it, and I literally think the answer might be to move the artist to LA and just basically forget where they came from for purposes of marketing for a while, and then reintroduce their past and part of the story, and we'll see how it goes. We're still trying everything, but it's a
challenge.
It's a weird challenge.
I mean, I could speak to that a little bit because like my problems are similar, like coming from Norway and Scandinavia. Like you have the Auroras, I worked on that project.
Yeah.
You have the Astrid S's, but I don't even think she's really broke. So it's like, you know, I think that is the answer, to be honest. I think bringing them here to LA and having a whole rebranding essentially. That's what I do with what I will be doing with my Scandinavian clients when they come over, because that has definitely been my challenge, is, you know, trying to get them over. I have several clients in the UK and in Finland, and trying to get them to be in LA just even for a month, like come for a month. Because there's only so much I could do when I'm over there. Like the resources just aren't the same. So I think you're on the right path there.
Thank you. And it's funny, I also used to work a whole lot with the Norwegian market, but like so Universal Music Norway was like a huge client of mine when I was at Music Ally for a few years, and everyone from Sieb to Astrid S to like some of the people who've made it out are like Tovalo, but she basically just like
Swedish.
came out of New York and the UK, and yeah, Swedish. But like, I mean, it's really funny to see like there's more government money in Norway than like probably the entire US government gives for the arts combined, just for music. And like, it's so difficult to break these artists. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's a good, I'm just really glad that you have an empathetic and similar scenario. Yeah.
Really doing it well right now, I must say, is Anita. Her manager's Brandon Silverstein, and she recently collaborated with Sweetie, and I just think that, you know, between her Cardi song and collaborations now, they're not, I don't want to say they're not doing a ton, but you look at like the Coldplay song with BTS and they're just not moving the needle like they used to. And I saw Anita perform at Rock in Rio right before the pandemic hit, and she's massive there. And to be honest, I had no idea who she really was. And now I'm seeing her trickle into the US market. And I think it's because, like you said, she's, you know, making it known that she's in LA. And it's crazy because you look at all these markets, you're like, okay, I've hit Asia, I know exactly what I'm doing. And then you're like, but Europe, I could be doing better. And every market's different. Every venue is different. And it's even with radio charts, it's just all, it's all analyzing it.
I would say like a good song is going to be a good song no matter what. So maybe like getting in different writers and getting in different producers and just making that hit song, because maybe the songs just aren't strong enough in the US, and that's just the bottom line of it.
I think it's so beyond just a good song now, because we all used to think like, oh, if the song is good, it's going to react. And I think that narrative is changing.
Absolutely. I think these are great challenges that you've mentioned, and hopefully the advice that you've thrown around is helpful towards, you know, the audience and each other as well. What a challenge, you know, the global market and understanding it. And an interesting question would be also, how do you you know, keep the authenticity of the artist and not erase, right, like where they come from, right? But that's probably a question for another day. Yeah, I'd like to actually, since we're heading towards the end of the panel, I'd like to address a couple of the questions that have come up in the chat, if that's okay. I see that Lauren said, what role do music publications play in your business? Which ones are your favorite and why? Would anybody like to answer this question?
Are you saying like music publishers or like publications as far as like
I believe publications is what she wrote. So I believe, yeah, like Rolling Stone, publishers, mags, websites. She clarified.
We have a PR team. I'm not entirely sure who, I mean, I like Rolling Stone. I don't think that it really moves the needle, but I think it creates clout to where you could talk about it and use it for DSP conversations and things like that. I think it looks cool, but as far as like, if you don't have a budget to have it, I don't think it's necessary. A lot of these
Yeah.
relationships, you could probably do it yourself, but I don't have any specific ones.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So-
and
Oh, you
uh,
go.
sorry. Press has become harder and harder since the pandemic too, because so many publications have laid off so many of their writers. So it's become an uphill battle. But I think basically the reason we hire publicists, one is for clout. So we can get a one-liner for a one sheet for pitches, for DSPs, for brand activations, whatever it is. That's kind of like the main thing. I will say, like, podcast pitching has been something that we've really focused on a lot lately, especially for some of our artists that are better in the more like long form space. So that's kind of been more beneficial to kind of round out the story around new music, and to kind of partner with podcasts that may be outside of the music realm as well. So I have an artist that's really into bourbon. So we've pitched for a lot of bourbon podcasts, and that's kind of exposed them to that community. And because of that, they've gotten brand partnerships with whiskey companies. And so in that way, I think it can be really beneficial. And but just publication wise, if it's just an online blog or whatever, it's typically just clout.
Right. That makes sense. Michaela,
Yeah.
did you have anything else? to
You know,
add?
I was just going to say, I think for each artist, it's different strategy. As we get into single conversations for Charlie specifically, we start thinking about, what's the first look? What smaller publications would make sense? I don't think that it's, we throw all our eggs in one basket of, we have to have the larger looks of Rolling Stone to really move the needle. I think it's a combination of things and
Yeah.
really putting together a proper plan. But for newer artists, it has been more difficult, especially with the pandemic, because, a lot of people have been laid off to really get, great press. And I
Yeah.
think that a lot of great press now is coming from how artists are interacting on their social media platforms and how they're really creating that storyline across TikTok, and not that the Daily Mail matters, but and things like that, but blogs and creating that buzz.
Mhm.
Totally. And I guess I off of this, I'd like to ask just a question about how do you then, if not focusing on publications, what would you say are some of like the deal structures that you offer to your artists when you're managing? What are those deal structures looking like instead? What are the focuses of your deals? Wesley, I don't know if
Not
you,
not related to press, right?
not related to press, however you like to present it.
Okay, so what I think I'm allowed to talk about this without it being collusion. You need to yell at me if it's collusion. The way that I tend to do my deals is there's an aspect that's a percentage of a commission on gross, and then there's an aspect where we'll jointly invest in something together with a near equivalent amount to that percentage. So let's say if I started working with a brand new artist who hasn't put anything out yet, we'd probably say like, hey, let's, I would say something like commission maybe 10-ish% on gross, and we'll jointly invest another 10% of gross in something else as like a venture together. And that's kind of the structure through which we have rolled out building all of these different businesses across my roster, from like the distribution company to the label, the marketing agency, studio, etc. And it's not like super typical, but I think it's more of like it almost becomes like a wealth management partner and then an artist management kind of deal side by side with it. And everyone seems to be happy with it. So I think no complaints so far.
That's amazing. Very interesting. Yeah, and I guess since we have only, I mean, unless anybody else wants to talk about, you know, if you have like a traditional deal structure with your artist or a non-traditional idea that, you know, that you have, I'm gonna let you jump in if anybody else has something to say about this, maybe. If not, I guess we can move on to, I guess, the last question since we're nearing the end of our panel. I'd like to just know if there's any advice that you could give our audience today, you know, to managers or self-managed artists. You know, what is something that you could give people to take away from today, that we could think about in the future?
Specifically the younger managers and coming up, and how they can become maybe where you are today or kind of be someone.
I think one thing that I feel super strongly about is that you should own a piece of whatever you're working on. And I think that doesn't mean like you should own copyrights if an artist releases a copyright underneath, you know, your management term. I think it's more like if you're building a business with an artist, you should be jointly invested in it together instead of just be in the situation where you can get fired any day of the week and, you know, some things will sunset out, but everything else will disappear. And I think a lot more artists are openly kind of talking about how like they want to be building with somebody instead of just like commissioning and, you know, lawyer takes 5% and so takes 5 other percent and all that thing that kind of goes on. And I think it's very easy to get into the music industry and take a $35,000 a year job at an independent record label or even a not independent record label and say, oh, I get to work in music, I get to touch art, and own absolutely no piece of it and own absolutely no percentage-based value of what's happening on this. And I think ultimately that kind of comes down to look for a team that will cut you in on the value that you add to the team. And if you can't find one, build one, because that is a lot more sustainable. And I think like that little conversation where we, you know, we're discussing our team's infrastructures and how hiring a brand person and, you know, taking somebody who's been doing label relations to DSPs, like those people add tremendous value to a record label or an agency, and they get paid like dog shit most of the time, unless they're like the best one at what they do, in which case they're probably still not making as much as if they had points on a record. So I think that's where my heart and head are as far as like advice of how, if you're going to enter the industry, you should be looking at it.
That makes total sense. Anybody else want to share some advice?
Claire, you go.
Sure. I guess another side of things that I've been super lucky to experience myself is just making sure I surround myself with people that work their asses off, and that's what's winning. It's not about ego, it's not about clout, it's about just serving your artist well and making sure that's what you're going into work every day striving for. I have just seen so many people go through different jobs in the industry and just be incredibly unhappy because they aren't being valued well, or the people around them are incredibly negative or not willing to put in the hours and the work, or they're just kind of in it just to be in it. I think that has made me like just being around people, one, my coworkers, who are willing to help one another at all times, who work their asses off. And I know that they're known for that. They have that reliability, they have relationships, people know they're good people and willing to really dig in every day. But also just client wise, working with people who are willing to fight for their career and take ownership. I think there's so many artists who get a manager and they're like, okay, well, here's everything. Here's my business, grow it. But it's so much of a collaborative effort. And I've seen like how much that works and how special it can be when everyone's pitching in and an equal amount. And it just like really strengthens the bond between artist and manager. And that's like super, super important to me. Like my relationship with my clients is something I value so, so much. I love each one of them. They're all special in their own way. We work really fucking hard together. So just making sure you are working for people that are worth working for and that they're kind. Because if they're not kind to you, they're not kind to other people and they will get a reputation. And I think just being a good person gets you way farther.
Yes, absolutely. I love that advice. I definitely take it onto my personal relationships as well.
Love that. You gotta.
I'd love to hear some advice from Christiana and Michaela as well.
Yeah. I mean, as a younger manager, I would say like we're all in this growing process, and things that didn't exist 10 years ago exist now. My partner Matthias Sorum, he always says like, do good business and like don't be afraid to burn bridges. If like the bridge needs to be burned, I totally agree. Like burn the bridge. And I think so much, especially women in this industry, get stepped on and we get, thrown around a little bit. And if somebody isn't doing good business, you don't have to work with that person. Move on to work with somebody that you want to work with, whether that's a client or a professional relationship. I know that like some people hold the keys to the castle, but there's probably going to be another person in a couple years. So I think just doing good business and, when you could sleep well at night and your client, is maybe happy, maybe not. I think it all works out a little bit better for everyone. So that's kind of my advice, is just, do good business and burn bridges if you need to.
Totally. Thank you very much for that. And Michaela?
Yeah, it's definitely great advice. It's important to surround yourself with the right people. I think the biggest takeaway for me is to understand that you can always learn something from everybody. And right now in this day and age, it's really data driven. So what can you take away from a conversation and how can you bring that into your own business? And, as we see all these different artists on the come up, it's important to really do your research and really see what trends are happening. And I know that it's important for me to look at what's going on TikTok. And then we have the marketing calls on, how do we take this and turn it into this? So it's really all a conversation and we have to keep the wheels spinning.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Well, thank you very much to our panelists for joining us today and having this conversation. Hopefully it was very useful for managers, self-managed artists, and our audience beyond any of those aspects of the music industry. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we really appreciate all the conversation and the discussions and everything you had to bring to the table today. Hopefully we can see you one more time on our next episode of Perspectives, which will be announced eventually. So feel free to follow MMF-US on Instagram, on social media, get involved with this community, and also go and check out all of the social medias and important avenues where you can contact the panelists today as well, so that we can create this community and continue the conversation. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you,
you.
everyone.
Thank you. And thank you, Juliana and Belinda, for putting this together. It was great.
Of course. We appreciate you guys so much.
We couldn't have done it
Guys.
without you.
Exactly. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for attending, and see you all next time. Thank you to our lovely panelists too. Thanks. And Juliana and Belinda, way to go.
Bye.
Bye everyone. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.